By the way, do you mind if I ask you a personal question?
No, not at all.
Well, forgive me for being so inquisitive, but during the past few weeks, I've wondered whether you might be having some second thoughts about the mission.
How do you mean?
The dawn of man, symbolized by the sun rising over the earth, a faint glimmer coming out of a black abyss of chaos. This early human spends days lounging around, completely unaware of themselves and their surroundings. They grasp for anything that is edible, ignoring the would-be food of fellow animals roaming right beside them. At this point, man is not yet man, as their cognitive functioning still resides at the animal level. The ape-man is barely able to sustain himself and survive the cold, dark nights. They are living in a state of utter psychic darkness. But one day, the monolith arrives and changes the whole dynamic of the group. At first, they are agitated and gather around the stone in amazement and wonder. Soon enough, they are grasping and touching the stone, and seem to honor it as if it is a deity. The stone holds great power over them, a power that is felt both externally and internally within the ape. We can understand the monolith as a symbol of the psyche, and its first appearance to our human ancestors. Here the psyche holds sway over all actions. The ape-man does not yet know why he does what he does. He just acts on pure instinct and without any sort of reflection. Everything the psyche directs is listened to and acted on by the ape-man, with no ability to question or reason. All commands are felt as numinous and final. We soon see the impact that the psyche has on man, as one of the apes is by himself and seems fascinated by the previously useless animal bones. It's as if a little voice has come into his head and animated a part of the world for him. This is the sort of bicameral mind mentioned by Julian Jaynes, in which instructions by way of command hallucinations are transmitted to man from the psyche, carving out a path for movement through the world. Man realizes his ability to use tools, and how he can use these tools for killing and protecting. The psyche has provided ape-man with a way to advance the species. It acts as a guiding force, forging an intimate bond between man and the world around him. And although the ape is now attuned to the environment, the psyche acts as a force that provides ape-man with little to no choice in individual actions. The ape throws the bone in the sky, and we transition to the next evolution of man and psyche. Spaceships fly through the sky, with the ability to soar in orbit far above the Earth. Tools have come to an apex point, in which it is hard to conceive of more advanced technology than what is currently at hand. Meanwhile, man is afforded every luxury that he desires. The tools have provided humankind with ease and comfort for their everyday lives. We are now in a place in which consciousness dominates, and man rules over the cosmos. In ancient times, man was dominated by the psyche, by the world, and had no choice but to listen to the psyche and be its slave. But modern man has now usurped the psyche, and everything becomes a slave to rational thinking. The psyche is no longer considered an important or relevant factor, as man has become the new ruling dominant on Earth and in the universe. This is the death of God mentioned by Nietzsche. God is no longer needed when man is at the forefront of scientific achievement. He no longer has any rules to bound or constrain him. Development of civilization is the end goal for this type of mind, which sees the human ego as the last and ultimate form. A ruling conscious mind means that all things are now measured and calculated. Everything is planned and organized and put into neat and compact cups and jars. All dealings are precise and logical. At the same time, all emotion and passion are left out of life, meaning that even astronauts are living a life of quiet desperation. Nothing seems to have any stakes at this point. There is no striving towards anything greater, as man believes there is nothing left to conquer. Decadence and comfort is desired by most, reminiscent of Nietzsche's lowest or last man. Pleasure is key, while striving for personal dreams is foolish. Spontaneity seems to be left out of the operation, whilst adherence to plans and rigidity reigns supreme. Man looks to overcome the external world while failing to overcome himself in the process. When the astronauts go to inspect the monolith, they attempt to investigate it with scientific tools and gadgets, products of man's rational mind. We are presented a stark contrast to how ancient man related to the monolith, or the Psyche. Instead of listening to, being guided by, and praising the Psyche, modern man relates in the exact opposite way. They are toying with it, inspecting it, and studying it in an empirical and objective way. Man is no longer moved by the Psyche. They believe that they can move it. They believe that with the right amount of will, that they can understand and calculate the meaning of the monolith. It is no longer revered and respected. It is instead an object of amusement and brief curiosity, as indicated by the attempt to take a group photo. But instead of responding to and assisting the astronauts, the Psyche blows them back with a high-pitched radio signal, showing the displeasure it holds for these pompous acts.
Well, he acts like he has genuine emotions. Of course, he's programmed that way to make it easier for us to talk to him. But as to whether or not he has real feelings is something I don't think anyone can truthfully answer.
On Discovery 1, HAL 9000 speaks of the inability to make errors and how it is the highest form of AI that has ever been created. It is the height of accuracy and perfection. HAL can be seen as a mirror of what man considers himself to be at this point of evolution. A perfect specimen, someone hell-bent on never making errors and being flawless in every way. Similarly, HAL is completely emotionless and sterile, just like the astronauts who sit by their screens, eating dehydrated food and watching themselves on television as a form of passive entertainment.
I'm not sure. What do you think?
I've got a bad feeling about him.
You do?
Yeah, definitely. Don't you?
I don't know. I think so. You know, of course, though, he's right about the 9000 series having a perfect operational record. They do.
Unfortunately, that sounds a little like famous last words.
Through several conversations, we come to see that Hal may be trying to sabotage the mission, although he is programmed to do the opposite. Is it possible that there is another part of Hal, the unconscious side of his psyche, which wants the mission to fail and wants things to go sidewards? It's as if the unconscious half is looking to jeopardize the foolishly planned conscious strivings. Frank and Dave express their uncertainty about Hal, stating that they have a bad feeling about things. As scientists and rationally minded men, they should not be paying attention to gut feelings and should instead listen to intellectual reasoning. But even they are recognizing the need to bypass modern thinking. There is no plausible reason for Hal to create issues with the mission, but sometimes the unconscious has messages for us that do not compute with conscious dictates.
We'd have to cut his higher brain functions without disturbing the purely automatic and regulatory systems.
And although Dave and Frank are referring to Hal here, perhaps they are realizing their own need to release conscious control over life, to bypass the intellectual mind while moving closer to the subregions of the brain associated with the unconscious psyche. There is an intuition that in order for humans to advance towards the next stage of evolution, consciousness must allow for the unconscious to make its presence felt. Soon after, Hal has killed Frank and attempted to lock Dave out of the ship. Hal is no longer a rationally operating machine. It is functioning irrationally, as if logic has been hijacked by another part of the mind. Hal is exhibiting what may happen to modern man when consciousness has become too one-sided and the unconscious has been dismissed. Suddenly, an individual begins tripping over themselves and making choices that are against their best judgment. The ego may have certain plans for how it wants to live, but oftentimes the unconscious has a different idea in mind, leading to all sorts of disasters and mistakes. Once Dave gets back to the ship, he moves to shut down Hal, and just as higher brain functionings are being cut for Hal, modern man must do the same in order to come to a meeting point with the unconscious. All rationality and conscious control of life goals must be turned off. During this process, the ego may continue pleading for its life, just as Hal does, creating excuses for how it may change if it is given one more chance. But when reason has led to near death and oblivion, allowing the unconscious to steer the ship for a period of time may seem like the only choice to make. As Hal feigns his enthusiasm and confidence in the mission, we understand how the conscious ego is making its last attempts to save itself from annihilation, stating that it is afraid.
My mind is going. I can feel it.
We see Dave's face as he removes the circuits, recognizing the fear that is overtaking him as he moves past reason and enters a place of complete uncertainty. No longer is the mission or his life going to be dictated by pure logic. It will look to be guided by the unconscious, while his conscious ego takes the passenger seat. Hal sings the song Daisy before he is deactivated, lyrics about going half crazy and riding on a bicycle built for two, and these lyrics are wholly appropriate, as any time an individual looks to join with the unconscious psyche, it is the equivalent of inviting a second personality to join the conscious ego, a place for two, no longer one voice, sitting side by side, a situation which could lead to psychosis if one is not well prepared. On a radio broadcast that was kept secret, Dave is informed of the real reason for the mission and the attempt to investigate Tycho. The crater's name means hitting the mark, or luck or fortune, definitions which are the antithesis of sinning in hell. Through a type of kairos, one must find the opportune moment to locate intelligent life, where the unconscious mind is looking to be uncovered, and provide deliverance from the life of an unsettled mind. Dave is now all alone in space, without rationality, reason, and the voices of others to distract from his inner mind. A trip to and through the unconscious must always occur alone, without the assistance of any outward interference. For the last 30 minutes of the film, Dave begins his descent into the depths of the psyche, an expedition beyond anywhere his conscious mind could ever go, to a place of inner numinosity. Dave is practically unable to handle what is being presented to him. He is frozen in terror as true realities are being brought to the forefront. Everything is nebulous and unformed, a sort of a priori archetypal space that can only be experienced within the mind. All things are in dissolution, in preparation for a new being. We can see the baby in its embryonic stage. It is a fetus representing the world womb, the unconscious matrix from which all things are created. It is the Virgin Mother, soon to be inseminated by the germ of conscious life that is Dave. The ego is going to be dissolved into the unconscious void, a mass which encompasses all of space. It is a movement towards a transformation into a higher state of being. Once the planet has been reached, Dave finds himself half unconscious, unable to control his motor functions. It's as if he is now being controlled from something outside of him. He is no longer the ruler of his own body. He finds himself in the bedroom, and he instantly becomes the observer of himself, passing from the Dave we know to a slightly older Dave to an even older Dave in the chair. He has become the observed and the observer. He is the sacrificed and the sacrificer. Each part of the pair is aware of each other, yet at the same time is aware of their separateness. They are two entities, but also one thing. It's as if there is a strange alien presence which is watching one at all times, ensuring the proper paths are taken to push one towards their ultimate destiny. But that presence is also oneself, simultaneously felt as both within and without. The last version of Dave is the man on his deathbed, the dying ego, who ultimately observes the monolith while reaching out his arm and hunching towards the being. Dave is not looking to be ruled by the monolith like the ape man, nor is he looking to dominate it like the lowest man of modern age. Instead, he is looking to form a relationship with the monolith. He is wanting to form a bridge to the unconscious psyche and relate to it as one relates to a long-lost friend. He realizes he is a twig cut off from the root, and that it is now time for him to link back to what's been forgotten. Through his psychic travels, he has realized the value of the psyche, the way that the unconscious serves as a compensatory function for mankind. It can be something that aids and assists our conscious strivings and leads us towards a greater sense of harmony with the world. By forming this bridge, man serves two roles at once. He is both the ruler and the servant. He is the Lord, but also the minister. The joining with the psyche makes man both a conscious mind and an unconscious ally. Dave then transforms to the star baby, the divine child, and as the triumphant music of liberation plays in the background, we understand how the newborn is the result of the transcendent function, a fusion between consciousness and unconsciousness. Here we behold the realization of the immortal self, which transcends the modern conception of man. This is Nietzsche's higher man, or the model for Zarathustra, the Ubermensch who is meant to save humanity from its plundering depths. The baby floats above and outside the sphere of the earth, because like the Bodhisattva, this being is no longer contained by the world. He contains the world within himself. It is the idea that one is no longer bound to the rules and norms of everyday existence, as the individual has transcended the herd morality and established a reevaluation of all values by creating a bond with the absolute ground of reality, a wheel rolling out of its own center with the axle in eternity. Thank you for watching Psychology of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Please watch my other videos on other TV and film characters if you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.